Welcome back to Big Riff Energy. This is episode 72, and it's a doozy. Got some great fan questions today. Very excited to address the emails sent in by you, the wonderful listeners. I'm going to be talking about the brand new album, Erode by Laceration. One of the best records I've heard this year. It's coming out Friday. A few other things. Reading a handwritten letter I got here from a listener of the show. You know what? It's been a while since I did a normal episode. The last episode I did was an interview with Orange Goblin's singer, lyricist extraordinaire, Ben Ward. But it's been a minute. It's been a couple weeks now since I've done just a normal format episode. There was a historically monumental event that occurred between the last episode of Big Riff Energy and today, and it would be wrong of me not to acknowledge it. I found a copy of Metal Church in the wild. Longtime devotees of this show will remember that this was the reason that I made a whole episode about best debut albums. One of the best, man. One of the most exciting metal records ever made. And I found it. And like I said, it would just be wrong to not acknowledge such a historically powerful and monumental and significant event in all of our lives. The song Metal Church from the album Metal Church by the band Metal Church is one of the greatest things that's ever happened. In fact, I've been kind of inundated by new vinyl. I'm still sort of digging my way through the Relapse Records haul. I listened to the Obituary live albums. Mastodon Leviathan, had been a long time since I listened to that one. By the way, those Obituary live albums sound really good. I don't want to say they sound better than the actual records. You know, I'm talking about the vinyl where they play Slowly We Rot all the way through and Cause of Death all the way through. They sound really good. John Tardy just sounds better and better with each passing year. One of the best death metal vocalists. Yeah, they sound massive. But anyway, I got more vinyl than I know what to do with. I'm inundated, still trying to dig my way through that Relapse haul. Found Metal Church, very excited about that. One of you guys, shout out to Davey, man, sent me the Street Tombs record that I love so much. I was so blown away by Street Tombs live performance. I feel like, dude, I got so excited when I saw a handwritten note in this package. Thank you, Davey. I feel like, despite forces trying to push us into an age where nothing is real and everything is in the metaverse on the cloud, you can't touch it, you can't smell it, you can't fully experience it with your whole being. I would like more handwritten notes, man. It feels like the old days of tape trading. So I'm going to read your note, Davey. Davey plays in a band from Michigan called Convulsus. He also sent me a CD. I will give you my thoughts on that momentarily. Here's the note from Davey, though. Hey, Nate. Hope the vinyl finds you well. They threw in a patch, too, so it's yours. A little cool story. Street Tombs got caught up in the border control on their way from Toronto to Michigan. They couldn't open the show. Phobophilic and Necrot ended up playing earlier in the night. While Necrot was playing, Street Tombs showed up. Phobophilic and Brian from the Black Dahlia murder, shout out to Brian, great dude, helped load them in, unbeknownst to Necrot in the audience. Towards the end of Necrot's set, they got the news Street Tombs showed up and announced they were still going to play their set. Very cool of Necrot to not mind them closing out the night. No egos with them. That's exactly right. Brian goes to that venue often when there's a good metal show happening. I'm going to guess it was at the Sanctuary. I'm not sure, though. unless it was Grand Rapids, which I guess it would be probably Pyramid Scheme. Love the show. Keep the big riff energy alive. P.S. I included an EP of my band Convulsus. No ulterior motive. Just wanted you to have one. Hit me up when you're in Michigan. Davey. Man, I don't care if there is an ulterior motive. If you're going to send me a record and not let me repay you for it, I'm going to listen to your CD for sure. That being said, I'm not going to lie about whether I like something or not. And I like this a lot. Convulsus, an evil born from the void. Yeah, man. It's got artwork by Dahmer Art. I'm a big fan of his stuff. Nasty stuff. Old school. Also, I'm pretty sure the CD itself is sort of channeling the old Elektra Records CDs. I remember seeing those a lot because of Metallica and also Pantera, I think, too. So that's a cool little insider thing for 90s and early 2000s fans of metal. Yeah, here's Convulsus from Michigan. 4 songs. It's real good. I was shocked, honestly. I don't know why, because most of the stuff y'all send me is good, which is a good sign. I would say it's for fans of Power Trip, Old Slayer. The vocals are really interesting and different. Got kind of a punky thing to them, somewhere between like old death metal and maybe even DRI or Discharge or something like that. It kind of reminds me of the Canadian thrash band Sacrifice, who I've talked about on this show, in the vocal department. It's just a little bit different than what you normally hear. And there's a lot of variety in the vocals. There's like death metal approach, punky approach, higher, lower, changing the pitch, putting some feeling in and taking some risks, So yeah, shout out, thanks Davey for sending me the record and the CD. You've got a new fan and I appreciate it, man. And yeah, everybody feel free to email me bigriffenergy@gmail.com and send me stuff. I have a PO box that I will provide. I don't want to provide it here because who knows what kind of bots or CIA deep state agents are listening. But if you want to write me, I think I've gotten pretty good at figuring out who's an actual human being and who's an actual fan of the show. I'm going to go through some more vinyl briefly here. I went to Waterloo Records in Austin to sell a guitar. Side note, I was reading about Waterloo. My wife told me that they might be moving out, so I read into it. And of course, a developer has bought that particular building. From what I understand, they are looking to turn it into a mid-rise. I guess that's like halfway between a low-rise and a high-rise. I'd never even heard the term before. So I'm unsure what the fate of Waterloo Records is going to be. It sounds like there's a chance they might stay there. Sounds like there's a chance they might be pushed out. But that's happening almost like some kind of parasitic cancer or something in Austin particularly, but in a lot of cities in this country. Just unchecked, advantageous, cancerous takeover of faceless corporate shit. But at least these people gave them the option to stay. Although, who knows if that's a feasible option or not. We'll see. Anyway, I went into Waterloo. I'm always impressed with the selection in there. First up, The Cars, self-titled. I already have their greatest hits album, but this is like kind of a perfect record. Most of the songs on this record are on the greatest hits. They're just perfectly written, very inspiring songwriting expertise, melodies, keyboard lines, some of the best sounding keyboards and some of the best keyboard lines ever recorded in rock music for sure. Filling the final gap in my crucial Thin Lizzy records. I don't have the first one. I actually don't like the first couple of Thin Lizzy records very much at all. I think they really hit their stride when they started doing the 2-guitar thing, especially the Scott Gorham, Brian Robertson era. But I like everything starting with that era through to the end. I've been waiting to find this in the wild. Thunder and Lightning. Thin Lizzy, definitely the most heavy metal Thin Lizzy record. They were leaning into the metal aesthetic. They were leaning into the metal sound and vibe. And this is their final record. I don't know. Have they made records since Phil died? Hope not. I legitimately have no idea. Maybe some of them are good, but it's not Thin Lizzy, obviously. I don't think they have, but maybe I'm wrong. Been looking for this one in the wild a long time. One of my top 5 favorite punk records. Punk? Is it punk? Is it hardcore? I would call it hardcore. But the shit we're calling hardcore nowadays has nothing to do with this. Pick Your King EP, Poison Idea. Who's your king? Jesus or Elvis? Pretty clever stuff. Yeah, this is top 5. Up there with Minor Threat. Cro-Mag's first couple albums. Bad Brains' first couple releases. I love Eye Against Eye, too, actually. That's a fucking really great album. That might actually be my favorite Bad Brains album. Love, My War, stuff like that. But I don't know. This is one of my favorites. This and the Negative Approach EP are both something special, and I'm glad to have found that. Poison Idea, Pick Your King EP. This is a very nostalgic one for me. Favorite Nick Cave album, Let Love In. Highly recommend it. If you haven't listened to Nick Cave, I think this is a pretty good starting point. Red Right Hand blew up because of the movie Scream. I remember I saw that movie when it came out, super young, and I remember that being a very early song for me as far as making me feel some kind of visceral reaction. But the whole album's great. Nobody's Baby Now is awesome. Metallica covered Loverman. That's kind of how I eventually figured out who Nick Cave was. The Metallica Nick Cave pipeline, much like the Metallica Diamond Head pipeline. Lay Me Low is a fucking awesome song. Yeah, the whole thing's good. We were listening to this daily in the haunted, occult, Charles Manson family arsenal stocked, weird, no right angle having house on 33 acres in West Fork, Arkansas, out by the former militia men. So yeah, I also have Baroness Red album over here behind me from the current Relapse Hall. We were listening to that one every day too. So very nostalgic stuff there. Let Love In, great starting point if you haven't heard Nick Cave. Here's a gem right here. Grammy Greg, who's been in a million bands, produced a million bands, produced Necrot, produced High on Fire, currently playing in Autopsy. Grammy Greg, baby, you know who it is. You know who it is, but yeah, the Grammy Greg is so fucking funny to me. Dude has a Grammy. Do your own research. Brain Oil, self-titled, sludge of the highest order. I guess you would call it that. It's got the Bay Area thing. There's like Dystopia in there. Is Dystopia a sludge band? I don't know. Almost like Burning Witch-ish vocals at times. Really, really unhinged stuff for fans of I Hate God, Sour Vein, Burning Witch, all that kind of stuff. Riffs and pain, early Neurosis, like very early Neurosis. This was $9. What kind of idiot would give this to somebody for $9? Thank you. Okay. There's the current vinyl haul, man. I've got more than I know what to do with. And, man, I appreciate Davey for sending me that record. I appreciate Relapse for sending me those records. And shout out to Waterloo for always having great stuff. Spirit Adrift has its own section at Waterloo. I'm very, very proud of that. So thank you to whoever made that happen. Because a lot of bands that I think are way bigger and better and cooler than us don't have their own section. So there's a humble brag for the day. I try to keep those to a minimum, but I couldn't help it. All right. First, got some paid skis today. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. And two of my favorites that have ever come in. And it's great. It's got me away from my demoing. I've been demoing the shit out of some of the most exciting riffs I've had in a long time. So it's been kind of tough to pull myself away from that. But you guys have been hitting me with some great questions these past couple weeks. So I actually had to sit down and kind of like write some stuff out so I wouldn't forget. Murray, do an episode about swagger. Who has it now? Biggest swagger of all time. So I guess you have to define what swagger is. There are front people with different vibes. You know, Henry Rollins made a huge impression on me at an early age, but I'm not sure that he possesses swagger. I think that's more of him and Iggy Pop and Gigi Allen and people like that, Wendy O. Williams. They kind of have more of like an animalistic, unhinged energy. And then you have like really good front people. Bobby Blitz comes to mind. He's one of my favorite frontmen I've ever seen. But it's not exactly swagger. That's like frontman, like energy, like cool. You know, sort of putting on a performance. I'm not saying any one vibe is better than the other. But to me, swagger is something totally different. And to be honest, I don't think anybody has it nowadays. And part of the, you know, I think Luca from Necrot does. That's your first question. Who has it now? I'm going to say Luca. And I'll get into how I define swagger. I think Riley from Power Trip had it too. If I knew these guys a little better, maybe I wouldn't think that they had it. Because a lot of people that y'all think have swagger, if you knew them, you would understand that they don't. They don't at all. In fact, a lot of them have they're not only devoid of swagger, they almost kind of have negative swagger. Like if there was swagger somewhere in a room, they would almost suck it out of the room if they entered into the room. I'll tell you my top 5 dudes that made an impression on me growing up. I mentioned Henry Rollins. He's up there for sure. But again, I think that's more kind of like Charles Manson, unhinged, crazy, maybe charisma, but in a scary way that you're also just want to kind of run away. But my top 5 guys, when I'm a prepubescent dude learning guitar, playing in bands, starting to figure out how to play in bands, starting to figure out how to not be completely uncomfortable in my own skin, which come to find out years later, a lot of these guys were uncomfortable in their own skin and they were just faking it really well. But James Hetfield, 92, 89 to 92. Obvious. Swagger through the fucking roof. Phil Anselmo, I would say 92 through 95. And then also maybe 2001. That to me is swagger. That's the absolute definition of swagger. Tony Iommi. The man does nothing. He does nothing. You know why? Because he doesn't have to. He's the baddest motherfucker in the world, and he believes it, and so does everyone else. So why would he have to prove it? You know, just his presence alone is proof that he's the baddest man on earth, right? And if you read his autobiography, some of his more drug-fueled years, I sort of had a little bit of trouble understanding exactly what he's trying to say, but it sounds to me like he was so consumed by his own ego and his own swagger and his own aura at one point there, maybe in the 80s, once again, blown even further out of proportion by certain motivational substances. He was halfway convinced he was some kind of reincarnated god or like celestial being or something. And this man like legitimately believed that. So that's swagger. That's real ass swagger. Jimi Hendrix, man. Total freak. Total absolute freak in the best possible way. Yeah. Swagger. Pure total swagger. The thing about metal guys is a lot of it is posturing and they're having to like put on a character. And it hurts to say this, but I think he has acknowledged this, that like 89 to 92 Hetfield was it was sort of a facade that he put up to protect himself. But he was so badass doing that I still consider him to be on this top 5 swagger list. Number 1, Ronnie Van Zant, Leonard Skinner. To me, the eras of music or the scenes that have the highest per capita swagger, the genres, I guess you could say, old rock and roll, the Beatles even. Like, you read stories about the Beatles getting into scraps, John Lennon punching hecklers out and shit like that. Old rock, the band, if you read, Robbie Robertson's autobiography or Levon Helm's autobiography, Motley Crue ain't got shit on them. So yeah, old rock, old blues, old country, and there's some current country artists that I would say have swagger for sure. Gangster rap, right? So highest per capita swagger, old rock and roll, talking 60s, 70s, blues, country, gangster rap. So which genres have the lowest swagger? Some of you might get upset with me, but this is the truth. Take it from someone who knows. Metal. Extreme metal in particular. Not all metal, but extreme metal. Guys that put on face paint. Guys that write songs about Tolkien characters. Guys that write the most evil lyrics you've ever heard, but get scared anytime they're in a neighborhood for 2 seconds where people don't look exactly like them. Nerds, dorks, not the cool kind, insecure, people that are pretending to be evil and scary. Reverse swagger, if you will. Yeah, I'm thinking about like underground cavernous death metal. I would tell you a story, I'll leave the guy nameless, of being on tour with sort of the progenitors of underground cavernous death metal, and the guy sort of stepping out of line with somebody who I love and care about a lot. And I said something about it, and he shit in his pants. These guys are dorks. Reverse swagger. Just remember that. I would say there's like very few exceptions to it. I think John Neutveit, as big a piece of shit as he was, we're talking about John from Dissection, I think he was about it, I still think Dave Mustaine would have wrapped him up in a pretzel if their feud ever became physical. I think Mustaine probably would have choked the absolute life out of him. But yeah, I kind of believe that guy's swagger a little bit. But no, I'm talking like Jim Morrison. Jim Morrison was crazy and did the wrong stuff and said the wrong stuff when you could actually go to jail for it, Levon Helm from the band, maxed out on the swagger. I mentioned Susie Quattro a couple episodes ago from Detroit for sure. Joe Walsh. Yeah. So from the blues world, guys like Muddy Waters, Freddie King, Ray Charles. Watch Ray Charles talking about Elvis. It's hilarious. Swagger, man. A lot of these people, the common factor is that they went through really, really hard times in life. I don't know if Jim Morrison did, but some of these other people I mentioned for sure. Country world, Waylon, Billy Joe Shaver, unlimited aura and swagger in that guy. George Jones has the craziest autobiography I've ever read. And anyone who's been in 3-6 Mafia or anybody who's connected to 3-6 Mafia in any way. So I think, I think that answers your question. As far as current swagger, the only guy who I really legitimately believe, Sturgill Simpson. He's been through some shit. He's been through the addiction. He served in the armed forces. He's seen a lot of the world. He's seen some hard times. He's worked for the railroad, grew up in Kentucky, made albums about how much the music business fucking sucks and how two-faced and evil and spineless and parasitic people are at every level while he was still in the music business. He got signed to a major label, and made an unsellable record and an unsellable concept about how bad they fucking suck. And the album did really well. And then what did he do after that? He went back to playing unplugged, true, unadulterated bluegrass music. He does whatever he wants. And then he went and starred in Killers of the Flower Moon and wrote a sort of Redheaded Stranger type album while he was driving home from Oklahoma after shooting he does whatever he wants. It's awesome. Went and sang old corny 80s country song on Righteous Gemstones and made it like really super emotional and moving. Yeah, that's swagger. As far as all timer though, Ronnie Van Zant, man, again, got signed to MCA Records, wrote a song about how bad MCA Records sucks. We're getting screwed by their manager, wrote a song telling their manager that he was going to kill him, but did it in a way that didn't qualify as terroristic threatening, which is an art form that I really appreciate, especially after the last episode I made. Open for the Rolling Stones in England, and we're given one rule: don't walk out on the giant tongue. So he took his guitarists and bassists and forced them all out onto the front of the giant tongue. And people told him that's really going to fuck up your career, and it didn't, and it doesn't. And every time they tell you that, it's bullshit. Every artist who's ever made an impression on the world doesn't think that way. And every person who's never done shit but wants to take credit for it is worried about things fucking up your career. So to me, the ultimate swagger hero, Ronnie Van Zant, for sure, and was not putting on an act. I also want to mention Tom Petty. Have to mention Tom Petty. He would do all that same kind of stuff. He went to war with the record labels trying to raise prices on records for no reason. Went to war to get himself out of an unfair contract. And writing songs like I Won't Back Down, he earned the right to put that song out, you know. I don't know if they make them like this anymore, guys. I don't know. There's people that if you look at their imaginary avatar that only exists on Instagram or Twitter or whatever we're calling it, you would think, wow, that guy's way cooler than I am. But that guy doesn't exist. A, no, he's not. But also B, the guy that you're comparing yourself to that you think has swagger doesn't exist. I know too many of these guys, and reverse swagger. I think that covers it for that subject. Alex. Next question from Alex here. Buckle up, guys. You might not like this one, but I am overjoyed that somebody finally asked me a question that excites me. I'm going to really milk this one because this is a topic that I love to talk about. I feel like I could do a whole other podcast series with a different title and only talk about this subject because it's the only thing I think I'm about as passionate about as I am music. Here we go. Oh, and it's a paid ski, so I got to give this guy his money's worth. That's my excuse for why I'm going so in depth about this stuff. Hey, Nate, here's a discussion topic. Your top 5 favorite fighters and why. You see my Pride shirt. Pride FC, Japan, different kind of pride. I'm cool with the other kind of pride too, but just to be clear, Japanese fighting promotion from the early 2000s that was owned and operated by the Yakuza, where the athletes were encouraged to do performance-enhancing drugs. What a time to be alive. So top 5 favorite fighters and why, plus pick an album or song to match each fighter's energy and why. The song thing, I didn't really have that easy of a time with. I'll do my top 5. First, I want to mention a couple people for specific reasons. I got to mention Rampage Jackson. Quentin Rampage Jackson from Memphis, Tennessee. What a character. I've started watching podcasts a little bit more since I started doing one because I want to see what works and what doesn't, you know, just as a fan, an observer. I want to see what bores the shit out of me, what I like, what I don't like. Quentin Rampage Jackson might be the best podcaster on earth. Theo Vaughn's really good. There's a few people that are great. But Rampage, the guy is a professional fighter. He spent his whole life getting hit in the head, hitting other people in the head. I don't think he did. I was going to say I don't think he took too much damage, but watch his fight with Vanderlei in Pride, and he did. But he is somehow quicker and funnier than 99% of professional comedians who are doing podcasts. Please explain that to me. I think maybe that's what happens when you grow up in Memphis, because all the 3-6 dudes and ladies and affiliated artists kind of have that same like quick wit. Maybe it's a defense mechanism because Memphis tends to be a little bit dangerous of a place. I mean, Rampage started drinking, selling drugs, and doing dirt and running hose and shit when he was 8 years old. So, yeah, maybe that sense of humor and his fighting abilities were developed just to survive. But I have to shout out Rampage, man. He's not in my top 5 quote unquote list that I'm about to do, but I wanted to shout him out because he's been really helping me lately with the art form of podcasting. Fucking hilarious, dude. Seems like a really good dude. I also have to mention Angela Overkill Hill. I wore a t-shirt of hers that I really liked. It's like a skull with an afro pick in it. I got that shirt because that year, I think it was 2019, maybe, or yeah, probably 2019 or maybe 18. She was the most active fighter on the UFC roster. She sort of took the mantle from Donald Cowboy Cerrone, who I love, but he sort of started slowing down, and of all people, Angela Hill had the most fights that year and was going to fucking war in every fight and was on the shit end of more bad decisions than anyone I've ever seen, I think. So I was just like really becoming a fan of her that year and really kind of like offended on her behalf that she was getting fucked over so much. So I bought that shirt. I wore it on the cover of Decibel, and turns out we have some mutual friends. So I sent her some stuff. She's a metalhead, which is kind of few and far between in that world. But yeah, sent her some shirts. And ever since then, I'll throw it up here on the screen. Here, I'm making a signal to myself to put the videos up on the screen. She's been making these Instagram reels and shit with our shirts on that are hilarious. She got like really good at making these short little funny bits of content relating to training and stuff like that. So if you're just listening, Angie Hill's doing all kinds of goofy shit in Spirit Adrift shirts on the screen. And man, I was just overjoyed to see that, because there are few people on this earth that I look up to and remain in awe of as these people who fight for a living. That's kind of the whole way I got into it, you know. One of my best buds growing up was a wrestler and a boxer, and watching what he went through with weight cuts and missing a lot of stuff just to stay sharp and to train, and yeah, the dedication and the passion and all that. It's not that much different from somebody trying to grind it out in the music business. The only thing is, instead of dirty ass merch cuts and stuff like that, you're actually getting physically hurt and you're getting money robbed from you in shitty decisions, which is what happened to Angela so much. Yeah. Oh, that's what I was going to say about Ronnie Van Zant earlier. Anybody that's not doing something about merch cuts has zero swag. And by doing something, I mean doing something. I don't mean making an Instagram post about it. Any weak ass motherfucker can do that and then pat themselves on the back like they just did something. No, I'm talking about doing something, which is way harder, because again, oh, it's going to affect your career. It doesn't. Believe me, it doesn't. Everyone hates it. Everyone knows it sucks. And if Ronnie Van Zant or Tom Petty or any of those guys or gals with swagger were around today, you better believe they would actually be, I mean, shit. Ronnie would be putting a revolver in somebody's face for sure. He was anti-gun, but okay, maybe he'd be putting a buck knife to somebody's neck or something, or a broken bottle. We all know that's true. So that's another reason why I think people today don't really have any swagger. But man, I'm going all over the place. Okay, top 5 favorite fighters, right? I'm doing a top 6 because of course I am. This is not my best or greatest of all time list, which would be probably like Fedor, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson, who I randomly ran into at Sirius XM. I hope I still have that picture. If I do, it'll be on the screen right now. Mighty Mouse. What a fucking trip that was. I would put Anderson Silva on there, but he popped for steroids in an organization where you're not allowed to do it. I would put John Jones at number 1. Obviously, fucking dude was genetically engineered to be a fighter, total sociopath, which gives him an edge over literally everybody. But he, you know, all the outside the cage stuff aside, he popped for performance enhancing drugs in an organization that doesn't allow them. GSP would probably be on there. Amanda Nunes. Those are the greatest. Whatever. I'm doing a different list. I'm doing my favorites. And I'm really giving you your money's worth here, Alex. I like guys and gals that don't really rely on shit talking, lowbrow, like insults and drama and shit to sell fights. There was something special about prime Conor McGregor when he was coming up, I will acknowledge, but unfortunately he kind of created an atmosphere similar to our current political atmosphere over here, where you're just trying to be as mean as possible and shitty and insulting and disrespectful as possible. I don't really like that. I like guys and gals that come in to the fight and try to hurt people really, really, really bad in there. And that's what makes people want to watch them, right? People who are kind and compassionate and help their communities and have responsibility and families and, you know, fucking grown-ups, grown, developed people, once again, that have been through hardship, that have character, that don't try to sell their fights through disrespect, but instead try to sell their fights by going in there and committing the most epic acts of violence imaginable. That's what I like. So my honorable mention is going to be Robert Whittaker from New Zealand, because he sort of embodies that. I would say his walkout music would be Ulcerate, because they're from New Zealand. Also, shout out to Jamie from Ulcerate for writing me that nice email. I appreciate it, man. Ulcerate don't do interviews. I tried to get him on here. They don't do video interviews. I tried to get him on here, but he did write me a really nice email the other day. Appreciate it. Love the new record. Robert Whittaker should walk out to Ulcerate, because they're from New Zealand. He's from New Zealand. So here's the actual top 5. Daniel Cormier. Reminds me so much of people I grew up with. He's from Louisiana, small-ish town. Wrestled in high school, wrestled in college. Been through some really tough personal tragedy, personal circumstances. I'm a big underdog guy. This guy got really close to Olympic gold, which is sort of like the highest possible goal as an athlete. Didn't quite get there. Ups and downs, and his whole career is just built off of work ethic. You know, he doesn't look much like an athlete. He was always sort of at a height and a size and an athleticism disadvantage. But then you watch him tearing through Strikeforce. He was sort of the underdog coming up in every fight because nobody knew who he was. He obliterated Bigfoot, knocked him smooth out, picked up Josh Barnett, who's way bigger than him, over his head, threw him down on the ground. And Josh is a very good wrestler. Shout out to Josh Barnett too. Actually, I met him in LA one time. Nice guy. I'm not even trying to talk shit. I thought he'd be bigger. I was like kind of, because he's scary, strong, and powerful. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. But who would Daniel Cormier walk out to? Probably Freddie King, man. I think I mentioned Freddie King earlier with the swagger thing. Freddie's from East Texas, Louisiana area, right? He's from Texas for sure. Cormier's from Louisiana. It makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. Daniel Cormier beat the greatest heavyweight of all time to get the heavyweight title. Only really lost to the best martial artist of all time and the best heavyweight of all time, and beat the brakes off of everybody else badly. Manhandled dudes that were twice his size. Number 5, Daniel Cormier. Number 4, Max Holloway. He has the single greatest knockout in the history of mixed martial arts. He's got, I mean, his highlight reel is just unbelievable. Again, we're talking about a dude who is stand-up, responsible, beautiful, kind person outside of fighting, and then once you put him in there, he's letting demons out, you know. Came up in Hawaii without much parental involvement, you know. There were drugs in the picture, there was poverty in the picture. He could have gone many different routes in his life. He found martial arts. That's what I love about this stuff. I'm not going to lie, there's something primal in me that loves the violence, but it's the human spirit on display. That's what I like. And that's what I saw firsthand with my best bud growing up. And it took me a while to recognize that in MMA. I've always been a boxing fan. Obviously, guys like Muhammad Ali are, it's obvious that that's a person you should look up to, right? But with the MMA thing, I always thought it was just kind of savage, and it is. But some of these folks are some of the most admirable people in the world. What would Max walk out to? He walked out to a song, like a traditional Hawaii type song, right after the fires in Maui. I think it was called Hawaiian Kickboxer. I looked it up. He was fighting Chan Sung Young, the Korean zombie. Knocked him smooth out with one punch, ran out of the cage, ran up to his wife, kissed her, and was screaming at the crowd in a way that I've never really seen him do. The guy's like super Hawaiian, very, very chill, very nice, never spoken bad about his opponents, never disrespected people outside of the cage. But the man has demons. And when he walked out to that song right after those fires in Hawaii and did that to Korean Zombie and then let those demons out towards the crowd, it'll give you fucking goosebumps for sure. So yeah, Max would walk out to Hawaiian Kickboxer. Also, one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen is when he was fighting Calvin Kattar, and he was sort of had like a chip on his shoulder that Calvin was talking about who's got the best boxing in the UFC and all that. And Max is looking at the commentary table, screaming at them while Calvin's throwing punches at him, and Max is dodging every punch and countering while he's not looking. And he's screaming at the team, "I'm the best boxer in the UFC, baby." How many moments in this guy's career do you have to just jump up off the fucking couch and like scream? A lot of them. I remember playing a show with Gatecreeper in Long Island that like something it was like an off day on our tour, and we added a show, and there was like 1 million bands on the bill, and Mutilation Rights played and a bunch of other, I can't even remember. Did Noisem play? Maybe. I can't remember. But I was like shot. We spent the whole day just like sitting in the parking lot. I was shot. And I remember when we were playing in the back of the bar, there was a TV, and it was Max Holloway beating Jose Aldo. It was like the replay. And I like forgot what I was playing because I was watching Max get the title. And then we were on tour with Power Trip, and me and Hood watched Max beat Aldo, maybe for the second time, or I might have those mixed up. I can't remember. Shout out to Hood, man. Hood's who made me a Max Holloway fan. Number 3, Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. I'm on number 3, right? Dude, people that don't care about MMA are so fucking bored and pissed off right now. And I don't care. Sorry. It's a paid fan question. Got to answer it. Number 3, Charles Oliveira. What music would he walk out to? I'm going to be very cryptic about this and say the next Spirit Adrift album, because he inspired it in a certain way that I can't really talk about yet because I don't want to be giving out secrets. But I have been inspired to write songs by a couple of MMA fighters. Not directly, James wrote Disposable Heroes because he heard that phrase being used to describe like older NFL players, disposable heroes, right? Retired football players. Obviously, he didn't write the song about football players. He wrote it sort of about combat veterans and war and that sort of thing. In that same sense, I've been inspired to write songs by Justin Gagey and who else? Dan Hooker. Write me an email, bigriffenergy@gmail.com, if you can guess which song was inspired by Justin Gagey and which song was inspired by Dan Hooker. Hooker should be super obvious. But yeah, Charles has inspired certain elements of the next Spirit Adrift album, and I thank him for that. I love seeing a new prospect fight for the first time and being like, that guy is a champion. Because I feel really smart when I'm proven right, and I've done it a few times. First time I saw John Jones fight, I was like, nobody's beating him till he gets the title, and I was right. First time I saw Khabib fight, I knew he was getting the belt. Charles Oliveira had been around for a while, but then I saw him fight Kevin Ferguson, or not Kevin Ferguson. That's Kimbo's real name. The fucking dude from Michigan, Kevin, whatever. His name is escaping me right now. He's no longer in the UFC. But when Oliveira fought that dude in an empty arena, I saw something and I was like, what has happened to Charles Oliveira? This dude grew up in the favelas in Brazil, totally destitute, impoverished family. He had some kind of medical condition when he was a kid, and the doctors told him he might not live to see adulthood, and best case scenario, he's never going to be active. He's never going to be able to walk properly. He's never going to be able to play sports. He's never going to be able to have a normal life. His dad at one point told the doctors to fuck off and put him in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And he excelled at Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and it sort of fixed his body. And against all odds, this dude started competing in mixed martial arts, doing really well. Got into the UFC, had a rough go of it. Again, I'm like an underdog dude. I have a soft spot for the underdog. Nothing has ever come easy to me, professionally or in any other regard. It's all been ups and downs and failures and a grind, hard work and dedication. And honestly, I think that's true of most success stories. But something happened to Charles. He started training at Shoot the Box, which is like an old school legendary Brazilian gym. They had a lot of dudes fighting in Pride in Japan, and just killer, like dudes that just, they don't even spar. They just fight all day long, every day. He also had a daughter. I think that sort of changed him. But he just, he didn't let defeat and physical ailments and injuries and things that would just make most people quit. He just wouldn't do it. And watching him go on a tear from that first fight where I noticed something was different about him during COVID, which, man, UFC was like the one thing giving me something to look forward to during the really super locked down period of COVID. They gave me something to look forward to. And watching Oliveira go on this tear where he's just like, every fight he's in is an absolute fucking war, and he's getting dropped. He's getting basically knocked out in some of these fights, but getting up and somehow winning and persevering. And of course, eventually getting the title. And then look, I'll throw some pictures up of him too, in the favelas, right? Back in the day. And the guy's a multi-millionaire now. Against all logic, man. Against all logic. That's what I love about this thing. Oliveira. Again, these are not who I think are the greatest fighters of all time, because it's not that exciting or fulfilling to root for somebody that nobody thinks is going to lose. I mean, where's the fun in that? You know, I want to see people struggle and lose and fail and refuse to quit. That's what I like. And Oliveira is just like, man, his run to the title from 2020 till now, even now, man, so exciting, so inspiring. Charles Oliveira from Brazil. Number 2, who has been my number 1 for a long time and is only currently moved to number 2, Nick Diaz from Stockton, California. I don't know who Charles Oliveira would walk out to. I guess the next Spirit Adrift album. We'll keep it at that. Nick Diaz would walk out to Deftones because I hear they're his favorite band. California dude. I remember a time when everyone hated the Diaz brothers, and I wasn't super hot on them either because I think I misunderstood them. I thought they were very disrespectful and maybe even sort of a disgrace to the sport because they were beating the shit out of people on site in contexts where it's not really appropriate. Their friend Jake Shields, after his fight with Dan Henderson, one of his rivals at the time, came in the ring live on CBS. CBS had a promotion called Strike Force at one point that at the time was honestly cooler than the UFC. But yeah, Mayhem Miller came in the ring and said the wrong thing, and all these dudes from Stockton, including the Diaz brothers, beat the brakes off of him there in the middle of the ring live on CBS. It was a huge debacle. There were fines and all kinds of stuff. And at the time, I was like, man, that kind of sucks. But this is who they are. Again, dudes that grew up in hard conditions, street kids, real, just real. No, we're talking earlier about swagger, you know, guys that the swagger that they have when they're performing is no different than how they operate in the quote unquote real world. And I have a dear friend who actually helped me get those t-shirts to Angie Hill, now that I think about it. But I have a friend who made a documentary, like a mini documentary about the Diaz brothers. And I don't want to give out any like privileged information here, and I won't. I'm not going to mention this person's name. But I remember asking him, man, are they really like that? Are they really that fucking hardcore? And they're like just soldier. Like from what I can see about them, just being a fan, these guys are like scary. They're like for real about combat, you know? And these dudes run triathlons for fun. That's their hobby outside of fighting. And they swim to and from Alcatraz Island for fun. That's how much like pent up whatever, trauma, demons, rage, whatever, that they got to get out, you know? They teach their community jujitsu for fun. That's their side thing. I asked my friend, dude, are they really like that? Are they really that hardcore? Are they really, do they, what do kids say, stand on business as hard as it seems like they do? And my friend just shook his head and said, dude, they're even more hardcore than it seems like they are on TV. And he told me some stories about hanging with the Diaz bros in Stockton that dropped my jaw, man. One thing I will say is, like, you know, I've kind of hinted at it with the Mel Gibson thing and a couple other things. You know, there's been some crazy shit written about me. There was a whole debacle with me throwing sandwiches at Fred Durst when I was a kid that turned into a big thing. You really can't, like, celebrity worship is weird, and paying attention to famous or slightly famous people is weird because you think like you are mistaken in thinking that you know anything about them, because you don't. You really don't. I've read shit written about me on Reddit and stuff like that, that I'm like, where the fuck did this come from? Like weirdly specific stuff that is completely fabricated. And not necessarily like, some of it's been like shit talk, like negative stuff, but some good stuff too. I'm like, Jesus Christ, where is this? So my point is, like, just because you watch a person give interviews, watch a person go on talk shows, watch a person on a podcast, watch a person in a movie, watch a person on a reality show, watch a person in any avenue of the public sphere, and you think that you have any understanding of who that person is, that is a delusion. And it's like a very specifically American delusion. So I try to avoid like looking at these fighters and being like, oh my God, and, you know, worshiping these people or thinking that they're super cool. But when my buddy told me, dude, they're 10 times more hardcore than you even think that they are, I was very pleased to hear that. Nick Diaz's run through Strikeforce is one of the most beautiful, awe-inspiring, fun displays of combat that you will ever see, man. He had a different rhythm, you know. He's throwing 90% of his shots at 10% power and 10% of his shots at 95% power, and somehow it worked. He outlasted people, man. He grinded people out. You know, you couldn't finish him. You couldn't make him quit. And he would just grind on you till you gave up. But it was beautiful to see. His boxing is just like, in his prime, his boxing was unparalleled in mixed martial arts. Just the rhythm. It looks like he's throwing punches in slow motion half the time because his timing was so good. He didn't have to throw hard and he didn't have to throw fast. He's just winging stuff out there and just wearing people down. And there's guys out there and gals out there that show you that martial arts is an art form. The word art is in there. And Nick Diaz is one of those guys. He has been my number one favorite fighter for a long time. They really fucked him too, man. He got suspended for 5 years because of weed. Another qualifier on this list for me is none of these athletes have popped for performance enhancing drugs in organizations where it's not allowed, because that's not fair. That's cheating, right? If it's pride and they're allowing it, who cares? But these more modern and sort of regulated, you know, organizations that aren't ran by the Yakuza, they don't allow it. And so if one person's doing it and the other person isn't, it's not a fair fight. It sucks. Nick never pops for anything illegal and pops for weed, and they suspend him for 5 years, arguably in what I guess you could consider he's still in his prime as far as like age, you know, in Gregorian years and fighter years, pretty old. But yeah, they took 5 years from this dude, and then pretty sure they removed marijuana from the banned substance list after robbing this guy of his livelihood and his passion for 5 years. Fucking criminal, dude. That almost sounds like shit that they do in the music business. Okay, number one, though, today, I talked to Max Cavalera about him. He is the most inspiring guy in the world for me right now. Alex Pereira from Brazil. He would walk out to It's Sorry by Sepultura because that is actually what he walks out to. There's nobody ever been like this guy in MMA. 12 years old, he's working in a tire shop in Brazil. He's like an indigenous Brazilian person. Came up very poor, much like Charles Oliveira in the favelas. From what I understand, if I'm mistaken about any of this, I apologize. Alcoholic by the time he's 12, 15 years old, daily drinker, drinking all day long, working manual labor jobs, hard living. Somehow discovers kickboxing, goes on to become one of the most successful kickboxers of all time. Comes into MMA, they're like, he's going to suck because he doesn't have grappling, he doesn't have wrestling, he's going to be screwed on the ground. If anybody knows jiu-jitsu or wrestling or judo or any of that stuff, he's going to be screwed. And this guy just starts knocking people's heads off. He has the power of Thor in his left hand. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. He touches people and they disappear for 5 days. I mentioned earlier, I like guys that don't hype their fights and don't build their career off of disrespectful dialogue and, insults and that sort of thing. This guy exemplifies the exact opposite of that. He has built himself into a meme with one word. He hardly speaks English. He says shama, which nobody even knows what it means. And he uses the Easter Island emoji because he is that stoic statue, calm, collected warrior who has already been through so much hard shit that getting in a cage with a trained killer isn't really intimidating to him. He can get the shit beat out of him for 4.5 rounds and come out in that 5th round like nothing ever happened and win the fight. He doesn't say anything. He's just, any message that he ever has is purely positive about like persevering through hard times, following your dream, being a good person, giving back to your community. This guy's going all around the world, meeting with fans with cancer, going to children's hospitals and visiting with these kids, shooting guns, taking his kids and all his kids' friends out on the lake on 4th of July. I don't know. He just exemplifies everything that's cool about being alive to me. The guy's a huge inspiration. Overcame severe alcoholism, which is, I can attest, is not easy. And he's a fucking badass, man. Shama. Alex Pereira is my favorite mixed martial artist currently. And, I don't know, it might be slightly recency bias, but, we'll see. We'll see. He might be my favorite of all time. Wow. Anybody that doesn't care about MMA is furious right now. I got a couple more fan letters, but I think I'm going to leave it at that because I've gone on for a while now. So write me, bigriffenergy@gmail.com, and I'm still here trying to play catch up. Album of discussion today, I Erode by Laceration. I'm going to show you the actual record. This is coming out on Friday on $20 Spin. Who do really cool colors that match the cover. Cover art's behind me. James Buscema, I think is his name, right? Got a cool insert here with lyrics and band photos. I just literally got this. I was waiting on this record to show up to do this podcast, but I really like that they said, Dave, thanks to Dave and $20 Spin for everything you've done for us and keeping the underground fucking sick. They said something else here that I noticed. Fuck any promoter who's pocketed band money or been a dick. That's right, man. Trying to shake us down for all kinds of shit. And we have to all tell them to eat shit and die, because that's what Ronnie Van Zant would do, what Jimi Hendrix would do. I appreciate anybody that will take even a little bit of a stand in their liner notes there. So respect to these guys for that. I Erode, Laceration, one of the best death metal records I've heard this year for sure. Very exciting stuff. So much death metal sounds exactly the same. I wouldn't say this sounds the same as Necrot or Sovereign or something like that, but it gives me the same sort of excitement. As soon as I heard it, I was like, wow, I hope the whole record is as good as this song. And a lot of times the rest of the record will not be as good as the best song, but this one is. Never even comes close to being monotonous, which would be my number one gripe with death metal nowadays, whether it's the samey, monotonous, low-pitched, growling vocals, or the production, or lack of experimentation. That's my biggest gripe with modern death metal. This thing is none of that. It's exciting. It's unique sounding. It was produced by Matt Harvey from Exhumed, and I'm like stunned at the production. I gotta check. I'm gonna like make sure I'm right here. Matt Harvey and Dark Corner Studios for producing this record with us. I'm wondering if that means that he like mixed it and mastered it too. Hang on. Like I said, I literally just got this in the mail. Yeah, recorded January 2024 in San Luis Obispo. Beautiful place. Been there a couple times. Produced by Matt Harvey. Oh, dude, Grammy Greg from Brain Oil. Dude, speak of the fucking devil. So yeah, Matt Harvey, who fucking rules. I love you, Matt Harvey. Gave me some of the best advice I've ever been given, man. And you were right about everything. Big Exhumed fan, big Matt Harvey fan. Guy's a legitimate genius. But I did not know that he could record albums this well. That fucking rules. I should have known. I think you've recorded a lot of your own stuff. Why did I not realize that? But yeah, mixed and mastered by Grammy Greg at Earhammer Studios in Oakland, California. Still doing his thing, man. Look at that. Everything's connected, dude. I found that Brain Oil record, went on about Grammy Greg, and then here he is making this, mixing and mastering this Laceration album. Yeah, dude, if you like old school death metal that's interesting and you care about the riffs and the artistic side of it and the actual music more than you do about making sure that you have the latest, coolest bootleg t-shirt that you can put on your Instagram story, go get this record. If you're about this shit, this is one of the best records of the year. If you claim to be into death metal and you don't buy this, finish that sentence. Bet you can. Laceration, Erode. It's just great. I would give it a 9 out of 10. There are very few 10 out of 10 records that have ever existed. I would give this one a 9 out of 10. For sure, going to be on my year-end list. Go get it, dude. If you like death metal and you don't have it, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. You ain't doing it right. So yeah, it's coming out Friday. 20buckspin.com and buy the vinyl. We're almost into August, man. Gonna be some exciting stuff happening soon. And I think that's it. Okay, I'm gonna keep demoing riffs, and I guess I'll see you next week. And man, I'm really getting behind because I went on way too long about MMA. But that's how it goes sometimes. All right. See you next week. I'm gonna be wearing a Soylent Green shirt that I just got. Hell yeah.